All right, welcome to the Herle Burly. We're going to get right to it today because we have a minister of the crown with us on the pod. And Herle Burly-ites, when you have a minister on your show, you waste nary a second. Francois-Philippe Champagne is here, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. Minister Champagne was first elected as a member of Parliament for the famous riding of Saint-Maurice, Champlain in 2015. He previously served as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, and Minister of International Trade. He's a businessman, a lawyer, an international trade specialist with over 20 years' experience, with a special focus on the fields of energy, engineering, and innovation. Minister Champagne holds a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Montreal and a Master of Laws in American Law from Case Western Reserve University. He also studied public and private international law at the Hague Academy in the Netherlands. He sounds like an elite to me.
Oh my God, I come from Shawinigan. Trust me, I come from Shawinigan. I put my best on for you because they told me this is the most serious show in town.
Today, we're going to talk about growth and jobs on the program, the future of auto manufacturing in this country, the energy transition, the impact of AI, and the importance in the future of broadband technology. It's a big lineup for the show. Minister Champagne, welcome to the Herle Burly. I'm so glad we could make this happen. Thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you very much. I thought you would talk to me about my singing because, you know, at the Grand Prix over the weekend, I was singing the national anthem with the official singer. And I got a number of messages that said, Minister, you're full on. I said, yes, I'm proud, you know. So I thought you would start with that. But I'm happy to talk about the economy as well. You pick your topic.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, the national anthem died with Roger Doucette.
Well, listen, there's no way I can match him. But I was giving my best. And you know what comforted me is that the official singer, she looked at me, said, I was looking at you, Minister, and it gave me strength in singing. So I said, listen, I did my very best, but I got a number of people say, Minister, we didn't know that you were so full into it that you were singing, but that was very good and a good moment for Canada. But I bet it was, I'm very happy to be with you.
I bet honestly. It was lovely. We got to find that on the YouTube machine. Where do we find you today? Where are you today?
Well, you find me in Ottawa, actually, because I came back yesterday night on my way to Toronto. But as you know, it's the end of the session. So it's always good to spend a few days in Ottawa to make sure no one takes my seats. So I always make sure that, you know, I keep it warm from time to time. But you know me, I like to be on the road meeting folks. I come from rural Canada. So trust me, you know, I usually look more like you than you look like me. So this is more of the shirt that I would put on. But they asked me today to, you know, to dress like that.
Sure, you got to look like a minister.
Well, trust me, this is the highlight of my day. I was saying, don't say that to the UK minister I spoke to this morning, though, because I may get in trouble, create an international incident. But no, I mean, everyone talks.
I'm going to tell my friend Ralph Goodale on you.
Exactly.
Exactly. Hey, I understand. You may say you're from rural Canada, but I understand you were born in Greenfield Park, Quebec.
Yes.
How long did you stay in Greenfield Park, Quebec?
Not very well. Actually, you should ask my mom, but not very long, David. Not very long, because that's a twist. You know, it's funny because journalists got a hold of my passport and they always say, "But Minister, you were born in Greenfield Park." I said, "That's true." But if you ask my mom, and please invite her on your show, you know, she'd be happy to talk to you. I'm not sure I would be. I'd like to see what she would say about that. But certainly, she was there just for a brief moment, and she gave birth there. But you know, my parents have been divorced for a long, long time. I think the same year that the divorce law came in Canada, so 1970.
Oh, okay.
So I spent part of my childhood in Quebec City, part of it in Shawinigan, then move on to the bigger cities. But yeah, most of my days have been either abroad or kind of in Quebec most of the time.
Well, I was interested because I know why your mother left there as quickly as she possibly could, because I lived there. When I first moved to Montreal in 1985, I had no fucking idea what Montreal was. Coming from Regina, I had been to Old Montreal, so I knew how to find myself to a bar called Aux Deux Pierrots, and that was all I knew. And that was all I knew about Montreal. So I rented an apartment in Greenfield Park.
Oh my God. So are you trying to suggest to the people listening that we have common origin, that you and I somehow are linked? Is that what
We are-
you're trying to make?
We are linked through Greenfield Park and through our general view that Greenfield Park is no place to live, because I quickly realized that living in Greenfield Park is not living in Montreal. So I got the hell out of there and I moved to NDG, which was a much more Montreal-ish experience.
Yeah, it's funny because, to your point, many people have pointed out to me your Greenfield Park, and I think on your passport, for those who can get one, it state that it's the place of birth. So it has really nothing to do, if your mom happens to be traveling that day, it doesn't really reflect where you're from. It just say where you're birthed. But I got that question many times, which is making always me smile, because to be honest, if you ask me to go to Greenfield Park today, I'd probably take Waze. That'd be the best way for me to get there.
Or the Champlain Bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, which was good. You remember the opening? That was a pretty big thing. I remember I was minister at the time, and I was the first one to drive. So I tested it for safety for Canadians first. So they asked me to go there first. But this was—
You were the official tester.
Yeah, you should have seen. They didn't want me to do that. They check if I had a driver's license. And I say, come on, I'm 52. I know how to drive a bridge, especially there's not going to be any traffic. Right. No, but this was a great moment for Canadian, the biggest infrastructure project. So a big thing back home.
Yeah, but that first ride is tricky. The Saskatchewan government built a bridge that fell down the first day it was in operation. So
was it? Well, thanks God I was not minister at the time.
Exactly. So how did you end up in Shawinigan?
Well, my dad is from the region, come from a big family. I think family of 13. My dad was the youngest. So very coming from an industrial manufacturing background. In our neck of the wood, Alcan was really kind of the bread and butter for everyone in town. My uncles, everyone worked there. And we lived through a tragedy, which is not unlike a lot of cities around North America have lived, which is basically when the plant shut down, we had to reinvent ourselves. We had lost the spirit of entrepreneurship. The community went to a very tough time. We went from having everyone having very decent income to raise a family to basically struggling for work. So for me in my current role as the industry minister, David, that's really what's driving me, is to rebuild the industrial sector in Canada. Because if you look in times, countries like Germany, Japan, Korea, having a strong industrial sector has really made countries successful over decades. So that's why you've seen perhaps on biomanufacturing, what we've done in aerospace, what we've done with the car industry. For me, this is very key to make sure that we keep that, because that's good jobs for folks. I remember my uncles working at the plants. Obviously, we're moving to the economy of the 21st century, digital economy and all that, but there's still a lot of folks working in these plants, and it's providing good living and in communities. Oftentimes, this is making a big difference. So that's where you see me. They call me the impatient minister. There's a lot of reasons for that, but making sure, I keep saying to folks, there's very few people waking up in the world thinking about Canada, apart maybe from you and I and our listeners. So you need to make the case for Canada every day. That's why I'm fighting every single day. Make the case for Canada, bring people to invest back home.
So I'm interested in how you got into politics, Minister, because you had a successful private sector career. There's a lot of talk these days about how few people there are who come from the business sector who are getting involved in politics compared to maybe decades or generations past. But you are one who had a successful business career, and sometime around 2013, you said, well, I'm going to go back to Shawinigan, and I'm going to do the things a person needs to do to run for office. Can you tell us a little bit, and it's an excuse for you to humble brag maybe, but can you tell us a little bit about what was involved in that decision for you professionally and financially?
Well, I always wanted to serve. And I kind of left to come back better prepared. And to your point, when I was in London, David, life was getting pretty comfortable. And in my life, I never took the road. I always took the road less traveled. Remember, I come from Shawinigan. I get accepted at Case Western. My grades were more than average. And to keep you smile, when I got the letter from Case Western in Cleveland to say that I was accepted, I was so incredulous that I called the school and said, "Are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" And they said, "What are you asking about? Did you get the letter you admitted?" I said, "Yes." Well, he said, "We make no joke here. So if you're admitted, you're admitted," and they hang up the phone. But I checked because I was so surprised. Now, the good thing is when I graduated and I had my diploma in hand, I went to the dean and I said, "Why would you have accepted me? Because my grades were pretty average." Well, he said, "Francois, I hate to disappoint you, but we went international that year and you were the only Canadian who applied. So in life, better be lucky. Be lucky than smart." So listen, I've always wanted to serve. And to your point, when I was in London, I spent 20 years of my life in Europe. So I started in Italy 5 years. I was 10 years in Switzerland, 5 years in London. And looking at where the country was going, I was seeing Canada with the eyes of a Canadian living abroad and, was really concerned about where we're going. And having that desire to come back and serve, life was pretty comfortable. And it's exactly when life is too comfortable that you should move on. And so I resigned. I remember my CEO at the time said, "Do you know how much that signature is going to cost you?" Well, I didn't realize so much at that time, but I said, "I'm moving." And you're right, I moved to Shawinigan, but I'd left many years ago. So I'll tell you a story that makes you laugh because I campaigned basically for 2 years, almost full time. And I remember going at a diner and introducing myself. "My name is Francois-Philippe Champagne. I'm running to be your MP." And someone looked at me and said, "But there's no federal election." But I said, "Sir, there's going to be one coming in 2 years. So there's no," so he was laughing because he said, "There's no election." But I said, "There'll be one coming." So, and this has been
people don't like too much politics in their life.
No, trust me, especially 2 years ahead of an election. But this was really an humbling moment, where you have to put your name and your face on a ballot and really, not the easiest riding to be elected. I know people think of Shawinigan and the other guy, but I keep reminding everyone this went without a Liberal for almost 15 years and more. So to go back, and my riding, to make you smile, David, is bigger than Belgium. So when people say, "Are you doing door knocking?" I said, "Listen, you need a good pair of boots because my riding is 8 hours north-south driving. And you need a truck to do that because I go up to, First Nation community." So a very humbling experience, but you know what? Every day, there's nothing I regret. Whether you've asked me if I would do it again, knowing what I know today, I don't know. I mean, I've been lucky. I've been lucky because there's a lot of steps to be able to serve. But it's been a good journey, and people have been extremely kind to me.
Right, but there are real consequences to making that decision in terms of your income goes from something higher to something lower. I don't know what it was, but I presume it's lower. And, that has implications for your family, and the time constraints become ridiculous on you. When you say you're not sure if you do it again, what are the things that might make you not?
Well, I mean, there's far more uncertainty. It's like starting a business, to be honest. When I think about that, there's so much uncertainty. It's been great. I'd probably do it again. I just think, I say that, but, I'm so passionate about what I do. But what I think is at the time, what I'm thinking is that I didn't know what it entails. People always say, "I want to serve, I want to do this." But you know what? First, you have to go back. You have to, won the nomination. You have to get elected. Your party, if you want to serve in government, has to form government. You have, if you can, and if, Prime Minister select you to make it to cabinet. My point, there's a lot of steps. People sometimes look at me, it seems easy. And I remind them, that's why I said that whether you do that, I walk through all the steps. And certainly you're right. I mean, the biggest challenge has been on the family side because it's demanding for the family. I just look at a typical week, and you know that, David. I mean, look at my weekend, but that's what our system, which I like, I've been foreign affairs minister. It connects you with the people. I've met so many leaders around the world somehow that I felt disconnected.
Right.
Not disconnected from the subject matter for which they were there, but disconnected from the reality of the people. You know, for me, I go to the IGA store, I go to the pharmacy, I go to the gas station, and you know what? You're answerable to these people. And trust me, when you're in rural Canada, people don't make distinction of municipal, provincial, and federal. I'm responsible for a lot of things. And for me, that keeps you grounded, that keeps you real with people. And that's the part which I like most. In our system, you have to be able to talk if you want to, I don't know, a German minister, or at the same time to the guy at the gas station and say why you're doing what you're doing and what you're passionate about and what's your mission. And for me, this is the best thing. I would say I'm at my best when I'm with folks and listening to them and engaging. And, you know, I have a lot of things in my writing to make people smile, like the Western Festival, and things like that, you know, bring a lot of people. You see a lot of folks. That's what I like the most.
So just a slight detour. When you're in the gas station, at the gas station, or in the grocery store these days, and people come up to you and they talk to you about the price of food or the price of gas, what do you say?
I'm concerned. I'm concerned because, you know, folks understand that obviously we don't control the price of oil. They understand that somehow the war in Ukraine has an impact on food, but, you know, it's pretty far to make the link between the price of bread and the price of milk to what's going on. They understand there's a link. And I tell them that every day I'm thinking about it and trying to see what can I do. I tell them that, you know, I have certain tools in my toolbox. I don't have a magic stick that I can fix these things, you know. We've looked at competition. We're looking at how we can make life more affordable. But that's a very real issue, David. It's a very real issue because
your opponents in the election will say they can do something about it. So if you're saying you can't do anything about it, that's, you know.
Well, we can do certain things. That's why, I mean, if you think about, you know, childcare is a good example. If you look at what we've done with the Competition Bureau, but I'm always worried of politicians who pretend that there's simple solution to complex problems. You know, I mean, you're looking at that. What we're facing is what many other countries are facing. That's not necessarily the answer for folks in Shawinigan or people who may listen to us in St. John's or in Edmonton. But we're working hard. I'm working, for example, on supply chain. How do you ease supply chain? Because it's like the perfect storm. It's the price of oil, it's the price of food, and it's supply chain. It's the perfect storm. So you see, what are the levers? There's a global price for oil. Price of food is influenced by the producers in the way war in Ukraine, where I've been trying to do something, because at the end of the day, I look at the guy in the mirror and I say, what can I do? I've been working on supply chain, easing supply chain with our trusted partners around the world, microchips, bringing the battery ecosystem, trying to onshore. I'm very much a guy who wants to onshore manufacturing in Canada, because we've seen that despite the billions that Western economies have been investing, if you look in life sciences.
You're a Canadian nationalist when it comes to the economy. You're an economic nationalist.
I am, because I've seen it. I was in the front row of the tsunami of COVID. I had to repatriate with the help of Air Canada, the WestJet, everyone in the country, hundreds of thousands of Canadians. I saw that. And despite everything we invested, our fill and finish capacity for vaccine was around 30 million. I made it a point to my family, to my friends, to the people I represent now that we would increase that. Now we could produce, 610 million vaccines in Canada. We brought Moderna, mRNA. We have Medicago in Quebec City. We have Vito Intravac in Saskatchewan, a One Health concept that we could do. My thing is that we didn't choose the pandemic. We're not going to choose whether there's another one, but we can choose to be better prepared. And my dad taught me that, you know, if you see something, do something. And that's what I've been trying to do there. And that's what I say to folks, is that by onshoring some of the critical, we won't be able to do everything, David. That'd be foolish, you know. Obviously, you'd say there's no way you can do everything. However, we can look at what's critical. Look at semiconductors, which has crippled for weeks our auto sector. I'm looking at that. Let's look at the battery. We're going to build them. Let's look at green steel, green aluminum. We're going to do that. I want to be the green supplier of choice to the world and a reliable partner at a time where stability, predictability, and the rule of law is in high demand and short supply. We stand out. And hopefully, more we bring closer to home, David, the more we would be protected somehow by some form of inflation. It's not a perfect correlation, but if we do more things here, we buy more locally, we can help our folks to do better in times of high inflation for sure.
Right. June 21st is the summer solstice, which feels to me like exactly the right choice to celebrate the diverse cultures of National Indigenous Peoples Day in this country. Obviously, it is a good thing that there's a day devoted to this, and it's good that it's the longest day of the year. But let's be honest, one day doesn't really cut it, does it? Given this country's history, reconciliation needs to be an everyday pursuit, animated by action. Our presenting sponsor, TELUS, recognizes this truth. They've been working to progress the path of reconciliation for some years now, in a deeply meaningful way. TELUS understands that each Indigenous community has unique needs, which is why they're seeking ongoing feedback from Indigenous community members. A couple of months ago, they launched their Indigenous Advisory Council, IRAP, the direct result of consultations between TELUS and Indigenous peoples, and a way to keep Indigenous experience included in their work. Right now, that council has 4 advisors. By 2023, the IRAP will include 6 additional advisory council members. The goal here is to learn from Indigenous voices and experts in their fields with lived experience in order to advance the work of TELUS's Indigenous Reconciliation Action Plan. The plan has 4 main pillars: connectivity, to collaborate with Indigenous governments and organizations to get communities connected to advanced broadband; enabling social outcomes, to create and expand programs that go beyond connectivity and help communities achieve long-term prosperity and success; cultural responsiveness and relationships, to listen, learn, and understand how TELUS can meet the unique needs and ensure culturally responsive customer experiences for Indigenous customers; and economic reconciliation, to support sustainable economic participation and growth for Indigenous peoples through meaningful involvement in TELUS's business. As I said off the top, Herle Burly-ites, a day to celebrate Indigenous cultures and contributions is an excellent thing. But TELUS is also committed to the 364 other days where the real work of reconciliation needs to happen. So, you have a hell of a title, Minister. Your title is Innovation, Science, and Industry. It's like a holy trinity of economic growth. I have a lot of economists on this show, and we talk about the state of the Canadian economy, and I would say on balance, people, whether they're positive or negative about the short term, everybody has pretty serious concerns about the long term. We've got projected long-term terrible economic growth rate. And I'm not doing that OECD thing. Like the Western world has lousy long-term growth rates. Has had before for a number of years and is forecast to have going into the future. Our population is aging. The energy transition is going to be particularly damaging to our economy. All feels like it's leading to a less prosperous country in the future. Do you have an answer to that?
I see the opposite. My phone has never been ringing as much as today. Never. I've never seen so many people wanting to invest in Canada. I go back to basics, David. Stability, predictability, the rule of law, critical mineral, our talent, our ecosystem. I keep saying to people, I never win on the money. I win with people. I win with talent, with ecosystem. Look at critical minerals. Listen, I came from Germany with the big auto manufacturer, and I'm on my way to Japan. I was just with one CEO this morning. And the pitch I'm saying is that I can be part of the solution. The world wants to do more responsible and more sustainable mining, for example. We have all the critical minerals to fuel the economy of the future. And as much as I like my Australian friends, for those who are on the show, they're a bit far. We've been blessed by geography. I say proximity to market, proximity to resources in the assembly plant. The world wants to come here. And you've seen what we've landed in the auto sector. In my view, if we didn't do these strategic investment, I was concerned about the auto sector on the long term. I am far more bullish than you are because honestly, if you look at what we've been doing in the auto sector, what we've done in the biomanufacturing sector, what we're going to do in hydrogen, what we're going to do in the pillar, like I said, I see the world as a pyramid in terms of the industrial policy. AI, cyber, quantum. Even the Secretary of Commerce, the first time I met her, David said, Minister Champagne, you have a head start against us on AI. I've never heard my American friends say I'm ahead.
Right.
You know, I'm not very tall, so I don't run fast. So they're usually ahead of me. But they said, you're ahead of us. I talked to the Japanese and they say, Minister, we want to meet you because we know Canada is the place to be. And I always say one thing, David, it's thanks to the workers, their talent, their expertise, their knowledge with attract us. Look at what we've done with Algene's Talentis. We've attracted 10 billion of investment in about 3 months. We've renewed all the mandates in the auto sectors. I have more companies who want to invest in biomanufacturing. I have never seen as many people wanted to invest in our country. And I think this is going to make a difference. I am far more bullish on the economic prosperity of the future. Why? Because we have kept an open door on immigration. We have invested in talent. And today the scarce resources is people. You know, you can build a plant anywhere. But I'll tell you, when I was with Moderna, I'll give you a bit of the background because I hope you're going to invite me again. I'll give you a bit of behind the scene. When I called Stéphane Bancel, the CEO of Moderna, that was a cold call. Never met the guy in my life. Didn't even know he spoke French. So I called the guy, I got his cell phone, and I called him. And the first thing he said, okay, I listened to you, Minister. You want me to come in Canada. Do you have enough talent to fuel my growth? And is your research ecosystem big enough to sustain us as we want to do research in cancer? We want to do research in rare disease, not only COVID. And the third thing was about subsidies. But like I said, I never win on the money because I'm competing with people who have far more money than we have. But we win on people. We win on the ecosystem. And David, if you look at even the foreign direct investment, we were third in the world after, I think, the US and China. We are at a record 15 years high in terms of investment in the country. And I've never been that bullish of people who want to come to our shore. Now we have a productivity issue. You're right. We need to become more productive. We need to invest more in research, development. I keep saying, what are the two big challenges of humanity? On one end is COVID. The other one is climate change. So science, technology, and innovation, that's going to give us the breakthrough. That's what we need to double down as a society. And that's why we need to attract more young people in the STEM fields so that we can fuel the growth and the future together. But I have never been as proud and as ambitious for Canada that I can see now.
Well, the auto recovery's been pretty impressive. I remember being told by a leader in the auto parts field about 7 years ago that Canada was unlikely to ever attract another auto plant, and that the focus had to be on desperately trying to maintain the ones we had, because if we didn't maintain those, keep the ones we had, then the parts business would move south along with the manufacturing. So what has happened? I mean, other than your exceptional salesmanship, what has happened to make the auto industry, and more than just the big three American, make the auto industry globally interested in Canada? I thought that our salaries had made us uncompetitive, and people wanted to do this in Mexico or Alabama. Why would they want to do it in Ontario now?
Listen, you hold on to your chair. I was one with a global CEO of a German company, one of the largest automaker in the world. He said, Minister, if we had foresight 15 years ago, would have gone north, south, because now they realize that the world has catch up. I'd say that the world, David, has just come up to grip and say, it doesn't really make sense to mine in Africa, to refine in Asia, and to build battery with coal, because the car of the future is basically, a digital platform on wheel. That's what it is. The battery is the next engine is the engine of the future, because with an electric motor, the whole R&D is on the battery. That is playing to Canada's strength, because in order to do that, you need lithium, you need cobalt, you need manganese, you need graphite, you'll need nickel. My pitch to them is to say, the consumer of today and tomorrow doesn't want just an electric car. They want a green car. And that's what I'm pitching to them. And I say, I can be your green supplier of choice. I'll be able to do green steel soon in Sudbury. I'll be doing green aluminum coming from Quebec. I'm working on green batteries. We're going to do green hydrogen. We can fuel the economy of the future. And that pitch, David, is resonating. Listen, I'd love to send you my the number of meetings I have in Japan. But you look at the list and it's true. I think sometimes we're constrained as Canadians to be too humble. You know, when I went to see the German manufacturer, people are saying to me, Minister, we've never talked to them. But I say that's exactly the reason why we should talk to them. Because if I had taken that approach in my first campaign, I'd probably not be elected. If you only talk to the people you know, that's not the best way to win. So I went to see the Germans, and now they say, we are in touch almost every week. And you'll see things coming. The same thing with the Japanese. And that goes to, you say, I was saying I was at the Grand Prix. I happened to bump into the Sea of Pirelli. So I said to him, we should build the greenest tire in the world. That he said, oh, great, we should have a discussion. It's always like that. David, you should be with me. It's always like that. Always like that, where you meet someone and you say, we have renewable energy. We have the talent. Like I said, I'm not like when I compare the Canadian economy, it's
do
like
we have the energy?
We do. Renewable energy.
Well, my understanding is that if we started to get serious into electrification, we don't have the energy. If we're going to electrify all the things that need to get electrified, we don't have either the
we need more
production capacity or the grid to deliver that. Don't
we have more charging stations? But I would say in the critical mineral strategy and what my colleague are doing, we are going to electrify Canada. And you're right. I mean, I was infrastructure minister. The grid has been done north-south, not east-west. We have a lot of things to do to do that. But let me just pause for a minute. If you look in Quebec, for example, where you spend the early place in Greenfield Park that you like so much that you moved to NDG. If you look at that, Quebec now is seen around the world with BC and other provinces who has moved extremely fast into hydroelectricity as kind of the battery of the world. We're ripping the dividend of 70 years of investment at the time. But today, when you're talking about baseload green energy, we are among the top jurisdiction in North America. And you know what's fascinating?
But isn't one of your deals in Ontario in jeopardy because of a lack of electricity?
We're working on that. No, because I have other things to put on the table. We're working with Doug Ford. We're working with Premier Legault on making sure we have that. But I think what plays very well to Ontario as well, and to your home province, Saskatchewan, is proximity to resources. Look at the deal we did with BHP. We need potash to address food security. We're going to build the greenest and the biggest mine in the world. The green thing, David, is making a difference. And when I pitch that, I say, for example, Quebec has enough renewable energy that it powers the state of New York. So you can use that green energy to transform the supply chain of the world. And that is very appealing. And I can tell you, I was with a German car manufacturer recently, and they said, local for local. What we're going to be producing in China will be for China. What we're going to be producing in North America will be for North America. Same thing for Europe. Obviously, there's more commonalities with Europe and Canada. This is the big shift that is happening, is localization of production. I keep saying global supply chain are becoming more local, and there's more emphasis on resiliency than efficiency. People are fed up of having long supply chain, which are fragile on semiconductors, on everything. Folks that are listening to us, which have a small business, understand that. People are finding difficult to get parts to repair their boat, to repair their bikes, to repair their house. So we need to shorten supply chain in some respect. That's the same thing for the big manufacturers. That's why I'm so bullish.
Isn't the world still super price point sensitive, though? I mean, how do companies build something in Canada instead of Mexico and have it be price competitive?
Well, I would say the price is still relevant. But if you look at the price differential of producing, for example, South compared to us, I think that you would see that it's becoming, the gap is closing. And what I hear most, David, is people are more concerned about access to critical supplies. We have over time built the talent pool that is needed to fuel the revolution that you're seeing in the industry, the electrification revolution, if you want, that you're seeing. And I think that's playing very well to our advantages. I hear less about the cost of labor and much more about the availability of critical minerals, of talent, of ecosystem. Like I said, if you look at Canada, David, I think that's why Canadian, we don't sell ourselves so well. I keep going around the world and pitching because I said, no one wakes up thinking about Canada. We have to pitch because when you look at that and you say, we can build green steel, we're going to have green aluminum, we're going to do green batteries. That's pretty powerful when you put that as a package. So the cost of labor is not really what people focus. They say, what do consumers want? What do we need to do? Environmentally, sustainably, dealing with First Nation. Where do you go in the world to have responsible mining, which is close to market? You think about Canada. But that's the same thing when I think about the biomanufacturing sector. People wanted talent, and we've got talent. So I think we just need to keep on going like that, and with you and everyone to keep on pitching Canada to make sure we're going to be more productive, invest in R&D. But I'm the most bullish you can find out there because I see it. My phone is, listen, I wish you would have access to my phone because you'd see the number of text messages I get by day. I could be doing that all day and still to respond, because people want to get connection.
Trust me, you do not wish that I had access to your phone.
Well, that'd be fun because you could answer for me from time to time, that'd be fun. And I could do your show. So imagine.
You know what? All I don't want your phone. I just want the PMO switchboard. I so miss the PMO switchboard. For a few years in my life, I had the PMO switchboard. My God, that's a service and a half.
I think it's the same number. David. I think, trust me, I think it's the same number. But I think what you're doing, David, to bring it down to folks is very, very important. We need to this is Team Canada playing. We have to be in this all together.
So let me bring it down even more. Let me play the alienated Westerner.
Okay.
So I think it's terrific. That while you are in the process of shutting down the major industry in Newfoundland, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, that you are revitalizing the auto industry in central Canada. I think that is terrific. What are people in Alberta and Saskatchewan going to do for a living 20 years from now?
Oh my God, I'm happy you asked that question. I presided the BAM Forum, so I probably spend most of my time, apart from Quebec, in Alberta. So listen, I am more bullish than ever on the resource sector. If you look, for example, in Alberta, look at Edmonton. The first hydrogen project in Canada is where? In Edmonton. Billions of dollars invested. Why? Because the kind of skills that our folks have out west are the same that you need, for example, on hydrogen. So we can convert that into jobs that would be in the hydrogen sector. I've been talking with the folks in Alberta about how can we green the production, carbon capture. There's a lot of projects going and a lot of things that are going on. If you look at Saskatchewan, listen, you were talking about...
Carbon capture was a big fight in your government. I know that. No, it's not, I just know.
Well, I think that people have come to terms to realize that this is a way to continue to produce resources responsibly. What is the critical point is the emission, is not the production. And if you can do that responsibly, and the folks are working, I'm working with them, there's a pathway to that, and I'm very bullish. Look at the mining. I told you the BHP potash mine with Nutrient, what we've done. We're going to be the producer in the world at a time where people want to rely on trusted partners and less on countries which don't share the same values. Yeah. Well, everyone wants to invest in Canada in that sector. I am a big believer that we have what it needs there to feed the world, to fuel the world. And I think that you're going to see that with respect of the investment. And don't get me wrong, what you see happening in Ontario and Quebec is benefiting folks on both sides of the country because we need critical minerals to do that. We have some in the north, we have some in Ontario, we have some on the west in lithium, for example. That's going to fuel the growth of the future. And I'm very pleased because the way that I see industrial policy, David, is really rebuilding the manufacturing sector. And that is playing out in every provinces of the country. We've done that also. Look on the East Coast. One of the biggest fill and finish capacity we have is BioVectra in Prince Edward Island. So it's going all over the country. But what I was most pleased, David, is when I was in a meeting with some CEOs and they say, we've noticed what's going on in Canada. better than that. It's a quote for you. That's a quote. CEO of one of the largest software company in Canada, in the US, said, Canada is on a roll. Not me who said that. CEO of one of the largest software company, I don't want to mention the name, but I think if you probably know who I'm talking about, said, Canada is on a roll. Sometimes it's the way we see us.
I'm guessing Elon Musk. I'm guessing Elon Musk.
No, I wish Elon would take my calls, but he's one of those that has not got my cell phone, nor I have his cell phone, but I'm working on that.
Oh, well, I'm only 2 degrees of separation from Elon Musk. I can hook you up.
Well, if you give me your cell phone, we'll be even closer.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's move to AI since you raised software.
Yes.
And I am fascinated by this, and well, first let me ask you what both excites you and AI is developing, it seems to me, faster than people had anticipated. That the advances in what we can do through machine learning is moving faster than had been anticipated maybe a decade ago. So it's on us. It's really on us right now. And the question is, what excites you about that? And what, if anything, concerns you about that?
I came to discover AI in a way. My background is I'm not a scientist. I'm more a business person, a lawyer. And initially, before I took that portfolio and became more interested, obviously, about AI, and I thought that AI was really kind of something that would drive like science in a very kind of narrow way. And my biggest takeaway since then is that this is going to have an impact on everything we do. Give you an example. Helping doctors, for example, to find diagnostics, because you can have a computer with quantum, for example, that if you're reading a scan, the average doctor you and I may have seen, 5,000 scan of a potential tumor. But if you have artificial intelligence, and if you were to couple that with quantum, that computer assisting your doctor could look probably at 1 billion image and say, you know what, if I look at that looks more like this than that. So augmenting kind of the capacity for diagnostic. I talked to folks in the aerospace sector, and they were saying to me how they can help pilots, for example, when you're going to fly the plane of the future, to try to be predicting or to make better analysis of weather patterns or other things that, the pilot will focus on flying the plane, and the computer will provide additional, I would say, intelligence or data for a smoother ride, for example. You're looking at the car of the future, which by definition will have elements of AI in it. You're looking at self-driving vehicles. So my first take on that is that, and that's why when I think about the pyramid, I put them like at the enabling blocks. It's like a house: AI, quantum, cybersecurity, because everything we're going to do in our daily lives will have an element of AI. To your question, that's why you may have seen last week, we put the digital charter, because now AI could do good things, but AI could be also concerning. And we need to regulate that, because you, David, applying for a loan, maybe the person in bracket who's deciding, it might be a computer or a person. If you apply for, life insurance or an insurance policy for your car, you will be entitled to know, based on the legislation we propose, that there's more transparency, that it's free of biases, that that it's a machine who has decided that David is not going to be eligible for that premium, or David has been given a higher premium than someone else. So on one hand, it's going to advance in modern technologies and new technology in the data economy, digital economy. On the other hand, we need to make sure that this is AI that works for people. And that's why in this bill also, there was this thing about protecting children. If you ask me, one of the things I've done in my life, which I'm most proud, I would say when we did the Declaration on Arbitrary Detention to protect folks like the 2 Michaels who were imprisoned illegally and unjustifiably in China, so that we gathered 60 countries to speak up and to give these people a voice. The other one I would say is protecting our children to that bill, to make sure that, we as parents would have the right to delete the information that's collected, that companies would be held to our standard, and every collection of information that would be done from our children would be considered, as we say, sensitive, much higher degree. And I think we're one of the first in the world to go that far. And, if I've achieved that, I'd say I'll leave the place in a better place.
Well, summer started today. Cue the old jokes about 2 weeks of lousy ski conditions. And they are old jokes. Summer can be an entirely different thing than it was just a generation ago. In British Columbia, last year's temperatures were at times the hottest on Earth. This year isn't expected to be as bad, but there will almost certainly be wildfires. CN, our sponsor, operates extensively out west and maintains an updated extreme weather fire plan. During really hot weather, it slows its trains, puts locomotives on both ends so that railroaders can monitor for any signs of fire, and on extreme days, assigns patrols to proceed and follow trains. CN staffers do extra brush and vegetation clearing along the network, and sensors embedded in tracks monitor constantly for hot wheels or overheated bearings. Now, railroaders are not firefighters, but sometimes, for obvious reasons, they are first on the scene and can act as first responders until the professionals arrive. The railway maintains caches of firefighting equipment along its network. Water, bladders, sprayers, fire retardant foam, and hand tools are readily available, as are tanker trucks in some locations. And this year, CN staff deployed a massive firefighting behemoth nicknamed Poseidon. It's 66 feet long, equipped with two 3,500-gallon water tanks, 3 pumps, hoses, and a diesel generator. Mechanics at CN's Walker Yard in Edmonton built Poseidon over the winter, guided by their own experiences in the field. It's now stationed in Kamloops, where it will roll the moment local firefighters in BC call for help. I'll repeat what I've said before. CN's commitment to safety is absolute. Pitching in to fight fires is the responsible thing to do. So a friend of mine gave me a book. It's an old book. It's from 2014, so that's pretty old about technology, but it's called The Second Machine Age. And I'm reading it, and I don't read a lot of books, so when I read one, I like to talk about it, tell people about it. And
I love it.
And this book has me thinking about jobs, because this book says, listen, you know what? Up until artificial intelligence, there'd only been one invention in the whole history of mankind that mattered, and that was the steam engine, which basically expanded human capacity beyond what physical labor could do. And this is the second invention that will matter, and in the trajectory of human life. And so it's got me thinking that if machines take over everything that they are going to be capable of doing, all the work that they're going to be capable of doing, and if the rest of the world is a global marketplace in which, if you want to get hired as a computer coder in Regina, you don't necessarily just have to be the best person in Regina. You may have to be among the best people in the world that could be hired by that company in Regina. So what happens to average people who aren't globally exceptional or have skills that can't be done by a machine? What are we going to do?
For a guy who doesn't read many books, I think you're pretty good, I would say. You pick up very quickly. You must have had good grades, for God's sake. I read a lot of books and my grades were pretty average. That's why I got admitted at Case Western, because they wanted a Canadian and I was the only one to apply. But I listen. Couple of thoughts on that. The way I see it, but again, I'm not the chief science officer who's looking at that, but from someone who's talking to a lot of people and listening to a lot of people, what I see with AI is to complement what human beings are going to be doing. Your doctor, your pilot, your folks on the factory floor as well. And I'll give you an example. I was on the factory floor at a place where they produce jet engine, and they had these very, very cool iPad. I thought it was an iPad. And I said, you give iPad to everyone. They said, no, it's a closed circuit iPad, minister. So in a sense, instead of having things on paper, now every worker has kind of an iPad. So when they face a problem, They can do, you'd love that. They can do like a FaceTime, not with their daughter, but with their colleagues to fix the problem. And then artificial intelligence, if you welded something that's not exactly right and you encounter, they will try to find a solution internally. And he said, this is powered by AI. If you put the question, they would say, well, David is the best welder we have, but David is in Santiago, is not like in Kitchener. So David comes online, you show him with the picture, they do that live. I thought that was quite exceptional, I must say. And I was saying, okay, the future is helping people, is helping to better manufacture. And let's not forget that in the service industry, we'll need real people. Because, you know, one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that for all the things we can think of, you know, our society cannot function without teachers, without nurses, without people taking care of the elderly, of our children, without people cooking, without people at the gas station.
Those are all jobs. I'm going to say something really controversial because I want to make a big point.
Yeah.
Those are all jobs for women. And young men without advanced educations, without post-secondary education, are really getting pissed off at all of the changes in society, and they're at Pierre Poilievre's rallies.
Well, I would say, listen, I don't think there's anyone who's working harder than them to find them jobs. Have them send their CV to me, because my biggest problem when I bring a plan, David, is people are asking me, Minister, will you find enough worker for me at the plant? And I have to fight to try to do site selection where we can have enough people. Those are blue-collar jobs. I'll give you an example. Very practical, because I love your take. I'm not sure there's only women, because if you look at truckers, I mean, the fabric of our society is truckers, it's nurses, it's teachers, it's firefighters.
Yeah, but AI is going to eliminate truckers. AI is going to eliminate truckers. We know that.
Well, it's not going to be tomorrow. Trust me. I mean, you know, sometime I look at these images, David, you and I will have more white hair in your case than me, I guess. I was looking at gray hair, but you're getting pretty white like me. I think that, you know, you have to think about climate condition as well. Some of these things are done in California, great. But, you know, when you live in Shawinigan and my backyard has 5 feet of snow and, you know, we have ice and we have all that you want, like in Saskatchewan, where you come from, in Edmonton or Prince George, listen, there's still road to go, I think. That's my humble opinion before we have these trucks going. And that's why it's so attractive for them to come in Nordic climate, because it's far more challenging. To your point, though, I would say that the challenge we have today, David, and I'm happy you talk about that, the challenge is people. You know, so I'll give you an example. I won't say the town, but we are building clusters. You know, you've seen that, for example, to make battery, you need cathodes and anodes. Take the plant that we have with LG Stellantis. The LG plant that which is a joint venture with Stellantis for battery, it's about a $5 billion plant. We need about 3,000 to 5,000 people to do that. You know what the biggest challenge we had was people. They were doing market study and they say, Minister, we're going to find the people. Those are good manufacturing jobs for the guys that you're talking about. And, you know, you're talking to someone who, my backyard is industrial sector. It's right. Like the Alcan plant, it's the forest industry. I understand that. And that's why I believe that the future of Canada is not in Bitcoins, but it's in manufacturing plants. Because that's where we're going to be. And if you look at history, you don't need to take it from me. The next book, I may send you a title for your next book, is about the nation that have kept a strong manufacturing sector has succeeded over decades. Look at Germany. Germany is the perfect match of innovation and manufacturing. Because to your point, I agree, people often confuse innovation and invention. There's been few invention lately, but there's been great innovation. Because invention is like the light bulb. Innovation is the iPhone. So for us, it's the same thing with the car. We need to be building the car of the future. We need to produce the resources of the future. We need to develop the vaccine of the future. That's going to be about innovation. So I'm very bullish. And if you find me a town in Canada where you have a lot of people who say, Minister, we need these manufacturing jobs, I'll work with them. Because honestly, the demand for them to come in Canada is great. And everyone should get a chance. And those manufacturing jobs, by the way, David, maybe when I was young, people were not looking at that. But today, they're probably the one which are most sought after for people to come and invest and expand their plants here in Canada.
Well, I'll be honest, Minister. You're the first person that feels to me like you've been speaking about manufacturing as a growth area for Canada. You're the first person I've heard talk about that in like 35 years. It feels to me like Canada literally gave up on manufacturing when we signed the free trade agreement and decided to become a services economy. I didn't hear anybody even talking about it.
Well, I'm excited because I see, maybe because it's, listen, we all come in this job with what you know and what you've lived through. I see the intersection of manufacturing and innovation with AI, with quantum as a great one. I see the resources sector with our natural resources, with our mining sector as providing the critical mineral of the future. I see the talent pool we have in the ecosystem. Let's say we're the third jurisdiction in the world to build cars and planes. We have to build on these things. Every country in the world would dream about that. Think about Moderna. You remember, David, when I was fighting, I was saying every country in the world would want to have a Moderna in their country. We landed it. It started with a cold call. I'll share with you the first text message. I said it at the announcement because people were smiling, and I said every deal starts with a phone call. Because I really called him a cold call, and then I sent him a text message on August 21st at 7:00. And I said, I like the vision. Let's do it together. And today, we might be in the future, David. I don't know how the science will develop, but we could be, for example, curing some form of cancer with technologies and researchers coming from Canada. That's the job of today, and that's the job of the future. I said to CEOs, don't come to me if you want 1,000 square foot on your plant. Tell me where the industry is going in 20 years from now, 30 years. You have to be where the puck is going to go. And that's what I keep telling them. That's why we have the hybrid propulsion on the aerospace. We're going to be building the helicopter of the future. That's where I want to be, where the puck is going. I'm a believer in that. And so far, the book that I've read that I like the most is the one of C.D. Howe. And if you look what C.D. Howe did in our country at the time, at the war, was to rebuild the industrial sector. A lot of the things that you and I enjoy today is because we made proactive decisions to invest in a track. In a small way, listen, I'm trying to think about where the puck is going. Where can we create the job of today and tomorrow? Where we can succeed? What's our competitive advantages? And make the pitch.
Man, you're such a confident salesperson. I feel that you could have made money at Glengarry Glen Ross.
Maybe you and I should have a business. We could try that. I don't know. Listen, I'm passionate. They call me. They said I have a bit of energy. I don't know why. I don't even drink coffee. I did this interview. I don't drink coffee. Imagine if I drank coffee this morning.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's getting me through. Hey, so we're running out of time because you're a busy person and I've got a few more things. So let me just whip through these. They're all subjects that could take up a lot of time, but I want to get a quick take from you.
Sure.
I live in the Outaouais. I live in Gatineau, in the municipality of Denholm, Quebec, and I do not have high-speed internet. Why not? Mm. I stayed at my brother's place in Costa Rica, which is in a remote area of Costa Rica on the southern Pacific coast. He lives on the side of a mountain, and he had fiber.
That's a question. I wanted to let you finish because I know you're traveling more than me these days. So, listen, from Gatineau to Costa Rica, when I was infrastructure minister, what's fascinating, when you go in urban center, they talk about mobility. When you go in rural Canada, it's about connectivity. Half of my folks, David, don't have cell phone or internet. Now we're fixing that. I think the blueprint we did with Quebec was a great one, which is really instead of having we were a bit directive in saying this provider will go in this region because the challenge you have in Canada to maintain affordability and competition is a huge landmass and few people. And I think the way it was done before had not served us well because I have people in my neck of the wood, believe it or not, on one end, on same road, one side of the road has internet, the other side has not. Because the telco have decided these guys, yes, these guys, no. That's not how it should be. I think what we've done with Quebec, and we've done with Ontario, and we're doing with a number of provinces, BC, and I think Alberta, is to work together to make sure that we have a plan to cover everyone. That is something we need to do. I agree with you. You cannot be in 2022 and not be connected, because every service we're providing is there, but also it's just, for me, I see internet as the electricity in the 1960s, or before, when we say we need to electrify. It's the same thing for internet. Everyone needs to have access to internet. We're working on that. We put a lot of dollars, and I'm confident we will achieve that, because that is key for people to be part of the society of the 21st century.
Well, it's essential, right? So like a 10-year plan to get people connectivity, that's like 10 lost years for people that don't have it.
Well, it depends where we are. I'd say, because you said Gatineau, not that I'm picking the one which is easiest, but in Quebec, they said September 2022. And people would listen to me and say, oh, well, that's another, I'm not the type of overpromise and underdeliver. In this one, what we did to put all the chance on our side, first of all, we partnered with the provincial government, we signed an agreement with all the telco, and we added financial penalties if they don't deliver on time. So today, it's not just about an announcement, some policies, it's about contractual obligations with financial penalties. If they don't meet the deadline, they're going to pay for it and have to explain to Canadian. That's why I was saying, David, as you mentioned, Gatineau, you gave me kind of an easy one, because that's a place where...
Well, because it's outrageous that I'm 45 minutes from Ottawa and I don't have high-speed internet.
I have people who live... if you look in Quebec, you have the 20 and the 40 as highways. I have people living like 10 minutes of the major highway, and we don't. I know folks who go to Saint-Hubert for lunch to take their message on their cell phone, and they send their kids in the evening at the library in the village to do their homework. That doesn't make sense. So I agree. That's why I say we've been working on that. I think what we've done with the province of Quebec is a good blueprint for Canada. We have to be a bit more directive with the telcos, as you have seen me on other topics, to be a bit more directive, to tell them what we expect as Canadians. And that was an example.
Well, if they cannot provide a winning hockey team for Toronto, at least they could provide me with high-speed broadband.
Talking about hockey, I'd love to do something for the Montreal Canadiens as well. Don't leave us behind.
Oh, Montreal, we're on track. We're on track. We got some good young players. We got a high draft pick, the Habs. The boys are going to be back. The Leafs, however, will choke forever. A couple more quick questions, if I can. Many people think the federal government should be more involved in fighting Bill 21 and Bill 96 in Quebec. What do you think?
There are elements in these bills that are disturbing to me, but I think that we need to leave that debate to first happen within the provincial legislature, and that's what I've said. This is a debate that Quebecers needs to have amongst Quebecers, and certainly, whilst we respect that process,
but aren't you and the Prime Minister Quebecers?
Sorry,
aren't you and the Prime Minister Quebecers?
Definitely, and that's why I say that. First of all, the National Assembly has work to do on that, and there's no consensus really about some of the aspect of this bill. There's things that are concerning, and that's why we can add our voice. There's people who have tried to silence us, like somehow as federal politicians, we should not add our voice. I say, hold on for a minute. I'm a Quebecer. I'm elected by the same people that you. And by the way, I'm pretty well, if you look at the number of people who voted for me, I think I have legitimacy to speak on behalf of the people that I represent. They've sent me 3 times a year to speak on their behalf at 3 elections. So whilst on one side, I respect that they have to have the process in the National Assembly, I think it's equally fair game for us to be able, like you said, the Prime Minister, myself, and all my colleagues from Quebec, to be able to add our voice to that. No one should be silenced. There's issues that we need to let them discuss and debate, because there's still, it's like everywhere. Not everything in these bills are making consensus in society. So where we need to be is to add our voice to that debate. And I think that's what we're doing respectfully. I've always been one, David, who respect provincial legislature to do their work. And when it's time, an appropriate time for us to jump in and to add our voice to that. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we'll keep doing.
Okay. And my last question is, how do you feel about a prospective campaign against Pierre Poilievre? He's absolutely, unquestionably going to win the Conservative leadership. So sometime between now and 2025, you're going to be facing off in a campaign against that guy. And how do you feel about that?
The best strategy I've always felt is for us to focus on delivering for people. That for me is the best way to go forward, is to focus on people. You talk about the analogy of hockey. If you focus too much on what the other team is doing, that's their side of the fence. Let them do their thing. Let them select whoever they want. My only priority is that if I can deliver for people every single day, people will be able to make a choice based on the things they've seen. It's easy to talk. And when you're in government, you need to make decisions. You need to govern. And I think my view has always been, David, remember when I came from London to run in Shawinigan, not exactly the same kind of physically and not the same, big urban. I went to rural. And if I'd focus on what the opponents would do to me or what the opponent could do to me, I would not be where I am today. So if I apply the same thing for me, is that let's focus on what we do best. Let's focus on delivering for Canadians at every single day. Let's seize the moment. Let's be ambitious. And when Canadians have a choice to make, they know where I stand. They know what we're accomplishing as a government. And I think that this is the moment that you start thinking about what the other is doing, you're getting distracted on delivering for people. And at the end of the day, people don't really care about that. What they want is for you to deliver every single day that you have the privilege to be in government. That for me is the best strategy.
Well, wait, I just got to push you because tactics do adapt.
And we have time, by the way. If you want to extend the podcast, listen, I'm happy because I tell you, this is the best thing I'm doing today. Don't say that to the others I'm going to meet. But this is the highlight of my day. Everyone said
thank you.
It's the best show in town and I have the chance to have you live. So listen, we're going to get going.
Awesome. Well, I will not abuse the privilege, but I will note that, like just as an example, would you have 10 ministers between now and the next election swanning around the World Economic Forum at Davos, even though I presume you think Davos is a useful thing to do, a useful networking event to be at? Will you go to Davos?
Well, I've been.
I know, but will you go in the next 3 years is what I'm saying. Or will you not, because it's an unnecessary provocation given the way that issue is playing out.
This is like things that you have to put aside. You have to do what's right. You have to do what's right, and that's what people care about. If people were to look at the meetings that I had in Davos and the return on investment, this was probably the most successful investment of mine. I lost my voice and I've not even got it back. That's why I sound like that. I had bronchitis. People all thought that I was, I was sick, and it was bronchitis. So I had more meetings there that are going to deliver for Canadians. Every single trip that I've done, I'm looking at the return on investment. What's the payback? Who I'm going to meet and what's that going to bring to people? The reality when you go there, to be honest, David, I probably spent I'm thinking now. I probably spent in the conference, if you want to call it that way, 2 hours out of a week, 3 hours. I'm trying to remember.
You're in the corridors meeting people.
I'm meeting people constantly.
Yeah.
And if anyone wanted to challenge me, I'd be happy to put and say, look at my schedule. And you'd see that it's a pretty full. Even the embassy said, Minister, we never had a Davos like that. You're exhausting us. They were happy to put me on the plane home because people were saying this was. So for me, you cannot let the noise getting in the way of doing things. For me, it's a way to make the case for Canada. And I wish there would be more of us to make the case of Canada because, like I said, it's a fallacy to think that everyone is thinking about what is Canada doing. When you manage a business worldwide, it's not that Canada comes up every morning. It's a very stable, predictable environment, but we have competitive advantages that we need to make forward. And if any one of that meeting that I had, David, is delivering jobs for the folks that you mentioned that are looking for job, factory floor, blue collars, you know what? In my soul, in my heart, and in my mind, I've made the right decision. And that's how I judge myself. And you know what? There's another guy coming from Shawinigan. He's a bit taller than me. Despite they call him the small guy, the little guy. One thing he said, always
never the small guy.
No, exactly.
Never the little small guy.
No, that's what they look at me. They say, that's the small little guy or whatever. Yeah. But never think that, what the opposition may be saying or others bother you. Trust Canadians. trust the judgment of Canadians. And this is exactly what I'm doing. I know that in my soul and heart, I make the right decision, and I trust Canadians. And you know what? I've had 4 portfolio now. I was 5 if you add when I was Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Let's say, I keep saying I have a much better record of keeping my job in the private sector than in the public sector. Because when the Prime Minister introduced me, I say, if you keep changing me, I'll have the record of the guy who changed job more often. But you know what? It's bringing all together. And I would not be bothered if people want to think that I'm meeting people to bring investment back home.
So you mentioned Mr. Chrétien, and it is okay to say his name on this program. He has been described as a bit of a mentor to you. And I'm going to say that despite my issues with him over the years, he's obviously one of the smartest people in politics that Canada's ever had. One of the best politicians Canada's ever seen. What's the most important thing he's imparted to you?
Over the years, we've become personal friends. I saw him over the weekend. Came home, had pancakes. Perspective is probably what he taught me the best. You know, when you're in government or at any given point in history, you think that your era, the challenge you're facing, the decision you have to make are quite unique. I know you think that, it's kind of never seen before. And what he has taught me the most is this thing of perspective. 40 years in politics, 10 as prime minister. That sense of perspective, then when you take decision, you have to see that in a continuum of history and where you are today and what you're looking ahead. The other thing he's taught me is stay close to the people. You know where you're coming from. Be true to who you are. Don't try to pretend what you're not. And I've always, each and every one of us in your world, in my world, we all have our own personality. And another thing that is always ingrained and mentioned, always being helpful and cheerful about Canada. Sometimes as Canadians, we're pretty hard on ourselves sometimes. I mean, we look and we say
Some people think the government doesn't like Canada very much.
Well, the tendency to want to do better is a good one. We should all strive to do better. We say, let's try to do, but let's also celebrate who we are. All of my speech, David, and you'd be tired of listening to me. I always finish by say, seize the moment, let's be ambitious. And then I had something about being proud and ambitious of what we are and what we can achieve as a country. Those are probably the things, like perspective, people, and always being kind of cheerful for a country which has provided unique opportunities for millions of people for generations. And when you have the privilege of representing Canada on the world stage, despite the fact that we need to improve, despite the fact that we can do better, despite the fact that there's different voices who would want us to do different things, when you go around the world and people talk about Canada, their eyes are shining as to, what we have achieved as society and the future ahead of us. Right. And I wake up every morning being cheerful. What you see now at this time, you would have seen at 6 o'clock would be exactly the same without coffee, because I feel it. And that's what I'm trying to transmit and inspiring our young people, reforming institution. We want more women in this kind of job. We want more young people. Sometimes I say, don't be confined with the future as you see it today. Imagine it. I remember when I was young, in front of my house, in my neck of the wood, people were bringing logs by the river. The logs were coming down from the north and they were going to the paper mill. Yeah. When I was a kid, if you had told me one day I would go swimming or boating on the river, I would have said, David, you're crazy. You can almost walk in the summer from one side to the other. And today it's a magnificent river where people swim and it's become kind of the main artery of tourism in our region. So sometimes I say to the young folks, I say, don't be constrained by what you see. Imagine a better place. And I think, for Canadians and what we have accomplished as a people, I think we have a lot to be proud and be ambitious. And that's what I'm trying to communicate to folks every day, both at home and abroad.
Outstanding. Well, those 3 lessons for Mr. Chrétien are really authentic to him. He was true to all of those things, and they were critical. They are the core 3 elements of his political success, without question.
I'll give you one. I know we have to go, but you'll love this one. I was walking with him in Shawinigan once, not too long ago, like 2 years ago, and he was meeting people, and he said, "Hi, my name is Jean Chrétien." And people were kind of surprised at it. And I walked with him and said, "But Mr. Chrétien, I think folks here would probably recognize who you are. I mean, listen, mostly around the world and in Canada." He said, "Never take a chance." And so people around, everywhere I go, I say, "My name is Francois-Philippe Champagne." People smile and they say, "Well, we know who we are." I said, "Listen, never take a chance. You don't know. You think, the syndrome of politicians is that you think you know everyone and everyone likes you. So that's the syndrome. So you have to introduce yourself and be forthcoming." And so I thought you would love that one.
I do. Listen, I've found this to be an energizing and uplifting conversation. Thank you for it. Thank you for making the time for it. Thank you for your work and your service. It's great. And next time, don't give Ford an announcement right on the eve of the fucking election. Otherwise, everything is great.
I love it. Well, the worst, David, would have been that he does the announcement without us, with our money, with the people's money, I should say, the federal government contribution. That would have been. But listen, it's been a perfect. It's been a real pleasant conversation. Everyone says the world about you. I have now the privilege of. This is the second show that I'm listening. First, because I did a small one and this one today. So I'll be more of a regular now. And last time you promised Seamus O'Regan a jersey, which you didn't offer to me. So I hope you can offer me at least to invite me on your show. If I don't get the jersey, I hope I get a second invitation.
You're going to get both. You're going to get a shirt, maybe a mug, and an invitation to come back for sure.
Well, as champagne, I drink to that, sir. Have a nice day. It's been good to be with you, and to all the listeners and the viewers. It's been a real pleasure. And thanks for what you're doing to bring, the person behind the politician, because people too much see us as the politician, and it's really people which matters. So to you, my friend, thank you very much. And to all the listeners and viewers, it's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Minister. Take care.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Minister Champagne for being with us today. I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and our sponsor, CN Rail, and of course, all of our listeners and viewers out there. Herle Burly-ites, thank you. We had another exceptional conversation today. See you next week.